Let's go. Yo, I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it, fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same.
All right, guys, happy Sunday. Welcome, May. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm doing good.
Wow, I'm really online too much on YouTube.
Thank you for taking time out of part of your weekend to help us out with this, because I'm certainly no expert in corporate mergers. I'm sure you have a lot of things hopefully to share with us, and I saw your audience was asking you on Twitter to cover this, so I think good idea to bring the power of the minds together again and talk about AMC as it pertains to this news article. Let me put it up on the screen here. This is what we're talking about tonight, and I'm going to let May share some thoughts, and I'll add in what I can relative to AMC from here to there. But Cineworld plans IPO. Cineworld, guys, is Cineworld Regal in the United States, not Cinemark. Cinemark is a separate company. Cineworld is the #2 domestic U.S. Theater company, theater exhibitor, movie exhibitor. But they are private. They went bankrupt in, what was it, May 2023?
Yeah.
2022?
2020. Oh, gosh, it might have been right at the turn. I think it was 2023, though.
And let me see what I can remember from the cobwebs of my brain. And then you can add some color to it. They went bankrupt. They had about $8 billion in debt or so.
Yeah.
In the bankruptcy process, a lot of that debt got discharged and some of it got converted to equity. And it is now owned by a consortium of private lenders who we don't really know who they are.
Yeah.
With about $2 billion in debt under the restructuring. Does that sound all about right?
That's what it looks like from the articles that I pulled on it. Yeah.
And
like
so
$2 billion, and then there might still be some residual stuff on the balance sheet from so it was $8 billion. I don't know if they cut all $8 billion of the debt. That's
I think $2 billion is what was restructured and still on their balance sheet.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's anything else, like if it's $2 billion and that's it, or if there's $2 billion and then some stubs remaining.
I don't know either. It's kind of difficult to get all of this information, but they're not debt free. I think we agree on that, right?
Oh, no.
And from, I have people in the UK that are feeding me info constantly. Cineworld over in UK, Regal in the US. Cineworld has still been struggling over there in the UK. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Arguing with landlords, saying we got to close or else we're going to file bankruptcy again.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying there's a couple of it looked like even for AMC, the UK business is structured strangely. You know what I mean? Like the debt is not the debt is the US debt and UK debt are not the same. And how it's structured is not the same. So like
in the economics of the movie industry is not the same in the UK too, right?
Yeah. That's part of the reason why even separate Cineworld and all of this, I'm always like, could we pay the UK what it needs and just get out of any debt going on? Because like everything is that's the complicated piece for even AMC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these lenders the private, do you call them, should we call them private equity? What do we call them now?
I mean, it's probably it could be private debt funds. It could also be special situation funds, kind of similar to like what we've experienced in AMC already. It could be private equity owned debt fund. I mean,
Let's just call them the lenders.
high yield credit funds. Yeah, we'll call it the lenders.
The lenders that own Cineworld, as we see from the headline here, are contemplating IPO, and mentioned in this article was considering the idea of a merger with AMC or Cinemark. It just was kind of haphazardly thrown in this article. So this is not a press release released by the company, and neither Cinemark or AMC has commented on it. So with that kind of as the setup, May, can you kind of give us your thoughts? I've already shared a couple on.
I mean, so starting from the perspective,
why would they plan an IPO? And then let's move into the merger piece of the discussion.
Okay, so with Cineworld, it looks to me like if I'm looking at it, they did something fairly standard, which is the company went bankrupt and then they put in a new management team. And the whole point of the new management team is to try to figure out how to repay as much of the debt as possible. Is usually what happens. So in some case, they're restructuring, they're negotiating with the debt holders. In some cases, especially with the UK, if it's probably, I mean, I don't know what Cineworld looked like before. So if there's like some old SEC filings that people want to like link over, or if you guys have done that work, I have not yet done that part of the work. But essentially, with some of the UK stuff in particular, at least if I'm to, usually it's the same banker that does everything in each nation, quite frankly. It's whoever does, theaters. But we know with AMC that that's secured debt, right? Like we know that basically they took the Odeon theaters and, the debt is like, it's B rated because of that.
Yep.
So my suspicion is that that's probably what Cinemark looks like. You've got these theaters that are attached to debt. And so they're just still trying that, plus whatever else was in the mix of what was bankrupt is basically what the private equity debt holders are holding, and that they're trying to monetize. So let's say they IPO. That IPO is probably going to be to pay back. It's probably going to go straight to the private equity funds plus whatever is the new equity business that will be this Cineworld that emerges from it, right? But it sounds like either they'll like IPO it and then sell the theaters first, which sometimes happens, or they'll IPO it and then there's a way for them to sell the theaters. That vehicle is just, its major purpose is to run the theaters, but then also sell them to as fast as possible, so to speak. Just so, I mean, like Cineworld as a deal, like if this wasn't about AMC, because what we care about is any residual impact to AMC because of shareholdership and whatever else that folks are doing. But like if this was not a call about AMC, we would talk about like, is that even a good deal? Like, how does it look? Like, what are they going to have to offer the equity holders in order to make it interesting? So that's just like to the right. And so the debt holders are going to probably take something a little bit on the chin with the purpose, and they would have to also kind of believe that the first milestone of payment is whatever they can sell the theaters for. So it does make sense that in a release they would talk about the fact that that is one of the intended things to happen either before or after the deal. It looks like probably it would be, I mean, it's really hard to say because the way this is written is like, it's like tea leaves. You have to be some magical human being. But if they did it before, then it would probably be, if they did it before such that it's done with the IPO, that's one thing. If they did the IPO and then sold it afterwards, that allows for different types of structures. So it would make sense that they would go talk to AMC and they talk to the bankers of Cinemark and see if any creativeness could be thought through on that front.
Let me ask you a question. If we think of a IPO in simple terms, is it fair to say, like I said, which is it fair to say that it's the lenders looking to cash out basically
Yeah.
of the deal they're stuck in right now?
Yeah.
Right, by
Yeah,
going
that's the whole
to
purpose.
the secondary markets and raising money, they can get a payout at least for part of what
Yeah.
they're stuck with right now, right?
I mean, that's really what it is. They're like, okay, the theaters aren't worth zero. You know, like when a company goes bankrupt, it goes bankrupt because the debt, you know, is something that the timing of the debt cannot be paid relative to the cash flows of what's going on, right? Like that's why something goes bankrupt. Okay, great. This thing already went bankrupt. And so now the debt holders have whatever's left over. Okay. They got rid of management. It looks like to me, if I'm understanding correctly, if I'm wrong on that, please correct me if I'm wrong. That's totally fine. But it looks like they put in a new person to unwind whatever was there on Cinemark. In some cases, they're sitting there nagging their landlord to try to get rid of the debt, because now that they're bankrupt, the landlord is in a different position, depending on whatever the laws of the UK are. In the US, they would be in a totally different position. The landlord would be like, whatever you can give me, let's talk it through, because now this thing's empty, right? So all that negotiation, that's happened. And now here you are as the debt holder, and you still have a bunch of theaters. So it's about, hey, it's not worth zero. It's probably not worth $10, as far as like, we're not talking about per share. It's probably not worth $100. It's probably over $1 million. Okay, so what is it worth? That's the big question on the IPO. And so the bankers have come out. So what the announcement is saying is that the debt holders are like, I think we should try to see what anyone would buy any bit of this for, whether in whole or in part. And so there's all types of creativity. I mean, all of AMC has been one creative investment banking project.
Yeah.
It was like the most creative stuff I've ever seen in AMC. What this announcement is saying is basically, hey, AMC and Cinemark, we all know these theaters are not worth nothing, and they might be worth something to you specifically, since they are your competitor. If you'd like to take fate out of the IPO, what will it be, and like take it into your own hands? What would be the number? That's really what this announcement is. What would be the number? But then the problem is that between Cinemark and AMC, one actually may have a little bit of a better balance sheet than the other, but neither of them is like super excited to do an acquisition. And we know that with AMC, Adam has Mr. Aaron, Adam Aaron. I don't know, why do I say it like that? Mr. Aaron. What do people call him? AA? I don't know. Okay,
AA, yeah.
y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay, so AA has said on the earnings call that that he would do only accretive acquisition. So what's that mean? Like only if he thinks that at the moment that he buys it, immediately the cash flow associated with it helps him to pay down debt. That's the only way. Otherwise, it's an ixnay. And then we as the shareholders have a certain sensitivity. By we, I mean mostly me, but probably a lot of other people have a lot of sensitivity to how much cash flow is used in CapEx. Okay. And you have to know that with these theaters, while it was in bankruptcy, zero capital expenditures were done during that period of time.
The Regal Cineworld theaters probably. That's the ones you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And that's an excellent point that we should make sure that we articulate for folks that were having trouble reading the stuff, is that this really is only the Regal theaters that are being potentially sold to cinema. It looks like it's really a focus of the Regal cinema theaters in the US, if I read it correctly. Does that look like what it says to you?
Let me look again while you're talking here. Go ahead.
But it
I'll
looks like
jump in.
it's specifically the Regal theaters in the US. And so the Regal theaters in the US is probably the one that I would think is interesting to AMC. Cinema City and Eastern Europe, it doesn't look like, to me, that would make sense. Okay. We all know the Europe business has been not as exciting. And part of that is because of foreign exchange stuff. So I wouldn't, if he were to nibble on Eastern Europe, I'd need to really understand why.
It says in the article, they are reportedly looking into the possibility of merging with AMC or Cinemark, but like Cinemark's only in Latin America.
Yeah.
So, would they be interested in Cineworld UK? I don't know. Would AMC want to double up over there? I don't know. It doesn't really say just Regal, but I think that's probably a fair assumption on your part. I don't know. It doesn't really say.
In this other article I'm looking at, it's saying Cinema City and Eastern Europe, which neither of them really has meaningful exposure to Eastern Europe. I don't think, so, but regardless, I mean, just look at what's happening. Well, not look at what's happening. You got to make a call on foreign currency, and it's not looking like the right call. Like it just looks like it would complicate things. Even if I'm totally wrong, I'm not an FX trader. Even if we thought like it's going to the moon in that part of the world, that's a risk. We don't need more currency risk. If anything, if I could get rid of all the European theaters, I'd be thrilled. Probably other people feel differently. Certainly AA feels differently. But it's like the US. So really, I would think that the more interesting part of that is Regal. But I don't see how you buy Regal without increasing capital expenditures. So that bothers me a lot.
My other question, May, is if we I think we've kind of covered the why IPO thing, right? It's kind of an exit for the lenders. So of course they're incentivized to consider an IPO. But I think if I summarize what you're saying is maybe they don't get as much as they want on an IPO deal. So kind of simultaneously they're exploring merger. Would it be an IPO and a merger, or one or the other?
No, this is creative financing, right? In my opinion. Okay, so it could be anything. Like honestly, Tony, all possibilities are a real thing. Hey, Sparky, I really feel like it'd be fun to have Sparky on here. I don't know if there's a way to get him on here because he definitely also will have an opinion given his background in debt. But the reality is like, I mean, here's the deal. You're the debt holder right now. It's not fun to be you. It's really not fun. This did not like unless you really truly bought that debt for crazy cheap, you still have a consumer business. Like in general, the consumer, oh, that's so sweet. The consumer is not in a strong position yet, let's say. Okay. In the US, we all know what's happening in the US right now. No opinions otherwise, but there's so much uncertainty that it's a little bit scary right now to think like, oh, the consumer's going to rock and roll here in 2025. Maybe we'll feel differently after we get a little more clarity on macroeconomics in 3 to 6 months. But right this exact minute in history, there's a lot of layoffs happening in a lot of places. So this is not the most exciting time to try to do a deal in consumer discretionary. Okay. So that's the backdrop of what's happening. So you got to think that the debt holders are sitting there like, we're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to get really creative. And then it's always going to be the case that they're going to be like, is there anyone that might want to buy some portion of these assets? And what would they need to be okay with that? Like what could we concede that would be willing to concede that would be okay with that? So they're going to and you would do this conversation before the IPO, in my opinion, so that you could have really explored all possibilities so that you know what to write for the use of proceeds for Cineworld. So like, this is far-fetched. This is probably not what's going to happen, but just to give you a sense for it, if AMC looked at certain Regal theaters, some portion, and it's possible that they could sell like just one set of theaters to AMC or just one set of theaters and then a totally separate set of theaters to Cinemark. That's totally like, these debt holders just want their money back, right? That's right. Or some portion of their money back, depending on where they bought the debt at, right? So some debt holders bought it at 100 and they sold it at 30 or something ludicrous like this. And they were lucky to get out at 30 because this thing went bankrupt. So that becomes 100%. How long do you think it takes?
When you're saying 30, we're talking 30 cents on the dollar, right?
30 cents.
For the audience. I just want to make sure we're keeping people in line with what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So like, and I'm using 30 because 30 is oftentimes a number that's thrown out when you have a hard asset company, a company that has buildings. So what they're saying is like, F it, we could probably get 30% of the value of the buildings. Like, that's not, it's not, I have no idea what the theaters are worth in and of themselves, right? And I have no idea how many of the theaters were physically owned versus they're just leases that they have like a long period of time on the lease, okay? So like, let's just use that number. Let's say the debt holder paid 30 cents for every $1 worth of debt.
Right.
Then they actually have a lot of wiggle room on what they're willing to do to be happy. right? Because if they bought it for 30 cents, they'll take 50 cents. That's still less than $1.
Right.
So, something like that. So some of that could be, we won't know because we're like, you'd have to know a lot more about this debt. You would have had to really have followed what happened to the debt while the company was going bankrupt and what did people buy those for. Sparky might know because sometimes he can see it. He can see marks on his Bloomberg that might show that we might not be able to see because we're just retail folks. That don't like, there are retail folks that see marks too. I just don't do enough debt to like have the systems that way. Anyways, my point is this: given that, let's say in this hypothetical that probably is not true. Okay, let's say that some of the debt holders bought this at 30 cents on the dollar, meaning 30 cents for every dollar. Then that gives them some wiggle room to go to an AMC or go to a Cinemark and just be like, what would you give me for these theater leases / theater properties? Okay, and then AMC could be like, well, let me look at these theaters. I'm still going to have to fix them. My shareholders are going to be pissed, but they do actually make this much money. That's the question that has to happen. And so that question should happen before the company IPOs.
Okay. That is helpful. And that also addresses a question that I had and I saw other people asking out in the social media world is like, could AMC or Cinemark cherry pick some of the theaters? Like, or is it a whole take all of our Regals or nothing? Like you're saying it's good.
The debt holders decide. The debt holders may be like, nah, this thing is such a diaper. I don't know. I'm trying to find words that are totally YouTube friendly, but like this thing is such a dirty diaper.
Such a sack of
and you deal with it. Yeah. Like you deal with it. You deal with all of them, the good, the bad. It could be like, essentially the show to think about. What's that show where it's like they go to like a storage unit and you buy it?
Yeah.
They could do that.
Here we go, guys. Here's Adamir, and we're gonna snap the padlock and see what's behind here.
Yeah, I mean, that could be
God!
It could be like Storage Wars. Look, I'm not the only one that watches Storage Wars. I'm sure of it. Okay, this could be a Storage Wars situation, all right? Or it could be like, nah. You know what? There's no freaking way we're taking these parts. Okay, it does look like from the way the press release is written that they're at least doing it by geography. So like Regal, US, whatever is the name of that place. I feel so bad that I'm ignorant. Cinema City and they are, it looks like they're at least doing that. So you could potentially buy a storage unit, maybe have more than one storage unit, so to speak. Yeah. My analogy. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to make it easier.
I mean, AMC is still in the progress of getting rid of the crappy theaters from the 2016, 2017 deal, right? So I'm not super thrilled about taking on, theoretically speaking, all of Regal's theaters if some portion of them are buckets of trash. They're not all trash. There's some good Regal theaters, probably a lot of good ones, but there's, just like AMC, when you have a huge fleet, there's probably some that are dilapidated and run down, and like you mentioned, behind on CapEx, maintenance.
It's literally like, it looks like, the most likely thing would be that they would be like, here's the US, here's the, and it would then look like it would look like Storage Wars. It would like, you know what I mean? It's a possibility that that's what they're trying to do in advance of the IPO. Now, another weird thing they could be doing, or alternatively, that either Cinemark or AMC could do, but really it's AMC that would probably do it, is they could counter with, hey, you have a bunch of garbage in Europe. I have a bunch of garbage in Europe. Can we put the two garbage heaps together and get rid of them together jointly? And it is a possibility too. So that would be a conversation that he would have with the debt holders, and they try to figure out some intriguing financing that could happen for the European garbage heap. Sorry, Europeans that are watching this, it's just a messy business right now in Europe. So that's also, but with all the release really gives us is this idea that the discussions are definitely happening, and they definitely have tried to reach out to AMC and Cinemark. Whether AMC or Cinemark have actually responded but just aren't telling us. I mean, they sure would never tell anyone if they were actually having this conversation.
Right. Here's kind of a sideball question, May, because I mentioned the antitrust concerns of doing a merger of, the number one and number two circuits in the United States. And people are telling me I'm crazy. What are you talking about, antitrust? Why would you even mention that? I mean, it's mentioned by AMC in their 10K. If your antitrust, the DOJ antitrust, and who is it, the FTC, they are in charge of making sure that they review and make sure that in any industry there's adequate competition and one company doesn't become so big as to monopolize prices. And AMC even says here, if we pursue any mergers or acquisitions, we may be reviewed by antitrust authorities. So that's not just me being a bear. I'm just being honest. Like, this is not just a slam dunk for AMC. And in fact, they were reviewed by the DOJ back in 2016 as part of their acquisition of those other three chains, Carmike, I think, specifically. So it's not just like simple here, sign on the dotted line, and the government's going to say, oh, yeah, I see you're all just trying to make sure you stay profitable. And yeah, no problem. It could be a problem with the government. Would you agree with that, May, or disagree?
That's a thing depending on what exactly. So there's many layers to this. The first one is, but directly, yes, I agree. The couple of things that make it so fascinating. First, it's going to be multi-country, right? So like, you have European antitrust, you have US antitrust, just depending on what happens. In the US, I think we've entered a more agreeable regime, but we won't know because literally the guy was just appointed recently. So
yeah.
So maybe we'll, but
that's a good point. New administration.
Yeah. So there's a lot of unknowns on what direction he's going to take this new administration relative to past administrations. So that's something to note. And then remember, it is the case that you can absolutely bankrupt a company because the antitrust. Spirit Airlines, everybody, I think a lot of this particular group is familiar with what happened to Spirit Airlines on antitrust, just a couple of years ago. So it's not a nothing for sure, 100%. I would think that because this company's already bankrupt, it may be like a little bit of a different animal and how they think about it. So it would be more, it would still probably, it would, like all mergers of any meaningful size are going to have to go through the proper channels, but it might be a little bit better than if it had to, if both of these, like if Cineworld wasn't such a disaster. Yeah, it's a different animal. Now that it's bankrupt, trying to like figure it out, it's a little bit of a different animal. So maybe a better shot. I would say, hey, sorry, Anya. I know Spirit Airlines is a rough spot for a lot of people. A lot of pain. It is what it is. I would say that maybe more so in the UK than the US because you do still have a number two competitor, but for sure, if AMC decided to purchase it, it would probably be a legit strategic move for Cinemark to come in and just be angry. Like, you know what I mean? Even if it isn't antitrust.
Yeah, I know enough, from finance class 30 years ago about antitrust laws, which is basically, I just know the basics, right? But would a competitor, if AMC and Regal were to announce a merger deal, would the competitor be able to lodge a complaint with the government? Is that how it works?
Like, yeah, 100%. Like if Cinemark were to announce, AMC would have to be placated. If like everybody has to be placated. Like,
Okay. I haven't followed a deal down the rabbit hole, and I hope to never have to, but maybe we will. I don't know.
So, like, for example, when Microsoft bought Activision, Sony had a panic attack and started like attacking aggressively to try to figure out what would need to be dislodged. So yeah, totally 100%.
Okay,
They
that's
could sue
good
each
to know.
other, and it could be like unfriendly. So that's why all of this has to be kind of a discussion. I mean, at least that's my opinion. Maybe someone else feels differently because maybe that was unique to the tech space. Okay, I'm willing to I'm open minded on this. These are all very conjecture type of things when we start to work about. Whenever you enter like deals that don't exist yet, but you have these really unique financing scenarios, who knows what people will do in a lot of ways.
Tech We Love says
Yeah.
AMC lawyers would have to do antitrust DD. I mean, can the lawyers do kind of like a early analysis?
Right. I mean, as much as you guys hate that guy from Morgan Stanley on the board, he is actually pretty smart. The lawyer guy,
I forget his name.
you know what I'm talking about. You
Yeah.
guys all know. If you guys know, just stick it in the comments because everybody was so upset that he's Morgan Stanley. But his background is law, to be fair, and he's done a lot of work for us. So that's why I'm never that mad at like the fact he's on the board and he gets paid.
Another question from kind of out of the blue. Why did they mention AMC and Cinemark? Like, why wouldn't they go to something like a Sony Pictures who just bought Alamo Drafthouse? Why wouldn't they go to a third party? Hey, you just bought Alamo. Can we interest you in some Regal?
Yeah. I was looking at the two. I agree with you. At least they put both of them down. Do you know what I mean? If they only put one down, then it'd be like a mega hint.
I mean, is it possible that they could be talking to a third party also that wasn't in the press release?
It is possible, but I was thinking more from the perspective of it's weird that they didn't just include everyone, right? But the fact that they included two means that somebody probably is having. So, here's the thing: you can't just include one, right? Because then that's totally sus. Okay, that's super sus. Okay, if you include two, it's like, but you didn't include like the third that just did the deal. It's weird, but it's not. I think what Sparky have to say. I only be able to raise a penny of debt right now to facilitate. I totally agree with Sparky.
Let's dive into that topic because that's really what everyone wants to know. Like, how do you get a deal like this done? AMC's trying to reduce their debt, and I know probably in the audience and social media world, they don't want to see a couple more $1 billion of debt from a deal like this thrown on the balance sheet. May, how would a deal like this be done?
All right, put Starkey's
AMC has no cash, they got no shares, and we don't want more debt. So how do you do it?
And we should probably put Sparky's comment up there because this is what we're directly talking to. And to be fair, the answer is who knows, but this is what I would throw out there to see if Sparky has any comments. This is why Sparky's really good at this stuff. Okay. Like if I was being like incredibly creative, I don't know if this is possible even.
Don't say preferred.
But what they could do is that they could get, like, let's say they were doing it with AMC, but Cinemark has the same dynamic, if we're honest, right? The private equity guys could agree, don't get mad, right? They could agree to offer a convertible piece of debt that was large enough in size that they could pay the 12% off and lower the blended rate of debt such that you're at the same spot for interest payments. Don't get mad. Okay, don't get mad at me, guys, but that is actually a big enough piece of debt for you to be able to do it. It would be a convert. It would be a convert for sure every day of the week.
But AMC has no shares left to do a new convert. Are you talking about?
No, right?
Are you talking about leveraging off of the 177 million or whatever that they have left? I mean, that's not enough.
It would be the preferred shares that they would be doing.
You did say preferred. I said don't say preferred.
Okay, look, don't get mad. Don't get mad. That's the only way that might actually work. Sparky, if that's even a possibility, you can acknowledge it and then tell me that's insane. I don't mind.
Tech We Love says, let's just do a real quick divert to his question. We'll come back to this. He says, was there any real press release? And that's a good question. Why are we even talking about this? May, this was floated out there as a trial balloon by somebody or what? Why do you think this this news article went out there.
Well, this is a standard template press release. So even if it's not, I mean, this doesn't look like a suspicious press release. Like, I definitely think, okay, let's talk about let's talk about pieces of this, right? Maybe we can put the press release up.
Yeah, let me put it back up. Hang on one second. All right. Can you see it?
Okay, hold on. Let me see. I'm trying to, like, too many windows open. All right. Okay. Yeah. So if we look at the press release, the fact that it's engaged JP Morgan and Barclays, that's not suspicious. That's just normal. And the fact that it's those are the advisory public offering, that's totally fine too. Like, all of that is fair game. Why they've engaged them, that's normal. That, the company can announce that, JP Morgan announce that. It doesn't matter, right? And then they say, which include Regal Cinema Chain in the US and Cinema City in Eastern Europe or Israel. The sources indicate that Cineworld is aiming for a listing between the second half of 2025, first half of 26, with the exact timing depending on the company's performance and marketing conditions, right? Okay. Look into the possibility more. So there's nothing in this that would scream at me that that this is some kind of total, like, crazy, this is to me, this is a fairly normal press release if you've engaged JP Morgan and Barclays and you're trying to announce to the world that we'd like to try to do something about this, right? This strategically would put a spotlight on AMC and Cinemark, which could be a good thing for AMC and Cinemark, depending on how people react. So I have no doubt that they're talking to AMC and Cinemark. I have no doubt that they've engaged. I mean, all of this looks like true statements. Whether or not anything, definitely Cineworld is desperate, free advice. So that part is true. That's unambiguous. Let's see what Sparky says. Converts are normally subordinated. AMC crushed its senior holders with the last convert, giving them ahead of seniors. It's insane. More wine. Great idea down the road.
Yeah. For Tech We Love, I commented on Twitter that I think, this is just my opinion, we don't have access to Cineworld Regal's numbers, but my thought, May, is these guys are desperate to get out from under this.
Oh yeah,
no, the lenders. So why are we seeing this? It's not because of AMC. It's not because of Cinemark. It's because the lenders that own this theater company, Regal Cineworld, don't want to own it. And they want to get their money back.
Yeah, money, time is money. Okay. Like literally, for the debt holders, time is money. So that's all that's happening here. And I think probably why are they a little bit more desperate than they might have been like 6 months ago is that the whole situation on the consumer is transformed pretty dramatically. That's the first part. And the second part is, if you do actually, let's say it's owned by a special situations company in Europe, okay, or like private debt in Europe. Well, right now, you're about to have potentially, knock on wood, we can finally get some cessation to the conflicts that we've had globally. If those conflicts cease, then the best deployment of capital is on infrastructure in Central Europe. It's not on random deals that happened from 2 years ago. Does that make sense? Like, so it's just straight up, I want my money back because I have other things that will make more money with it.
Tech We Love says, time is money for AMC and their shareholders, so I don't know what kind of equation would be doing AMC shareholders any favor. So that takes us back, thank you, to what May was talking about in the earlier question we had, and Sparky was jumping in there. How do you create a deal that would make this work, either for AMC or Cinemark? I don't really care about Cinemark, but they're both kind of in the same boat, right? I don't know how many shares Cinemark has available.
Storage wars.
I don't know how many shares of common Cinemark has available to do a deal. Their balance sheet is still not perfect. It's better than AMC, but gosh, man, it's complicated for anybody to take on something this huge and
It'll
come
all
out
come
smelling
down
like a rose.
Yeah, it'll all come down to price, because realize, okay, like Sparky is 100% right in pointing out that like this is not ideal. They do not have money. So literally you don't have, I mean, even if you just do it from a personal finance perspective, right? Like you don't have any money. Okay. But like these theaters aren't worth nothing, and they're not worth negative value. Like, in the sense that any sale that's made is going to be free and clear of debt. So it's just about whatever debt you take on. So like, they're like AMC and Cinemark are both in this position of where they have a really, really nice house and their neighbor just went bankrupt and want to sell the house for like literally whatever you want to offer it. Right. But you literally have no money left. This has happened to more than one person before. I'm in New York. Someone wants to sell the apartment next door. Either I have the money or I don't. Right. Like that's really so then if no one else wants to buy that apartment, then I got to really think about, even if it's uncomfortable, does it make sense for me to buy that apartment or not? That's the situation that we're looking at for AMC and for Cinemark. I don't know the answer to that, but at least that setup might help people think about, like, how do I look at this news flow? Now, here's the thing that I'm just going to tell you is that we've got AMC reporting earnings pretty soon here. He won't be able to answer any questions, no matter how many questions, which is going to suck because it's a thing.
Free advice says Cinemark just wants Regal to close. A major studio executive recently said the number of theaters need to shrink. That is actually a quote I have used for several years, going back to 2021. One of the executives said that the industry is over screened. And I generally agree. I mean, we've seen all of them closing theaters. It's hard to be profitable for any of them, at least over the last 4 years, when there's so many damn screens. You can't get enough butts in seats. That may change in 2026, but here's my question, May, with that as a setup. Could Cinemark and AMC both just say, nope, sorry, good luck?
Yeah,
or are we in what is that economic, the thieves dilemma or whatever it's called, where they're both secretly conspiring with Cineworld to get the best deal without telling the other one what they're doing? What would be the strategy here?
I mean, my dream world, Top Golf would buy all these and turn them into golf. At least that's profitable. You know what I mean? And I'm only half joking. Okay. I'm actually only maybe 30% joking, like 70%. Just get rid of them as theaters and turn them into something else. That is the best move every day of the week. But but it is possible that Cinemark and AMC look at whatever the theaters are profitable and try to storage wars this. Do you know what I mean? Be like, all right, is it cheaper for us to keep these? Let's say, just keep the numbers something, right? Like, let's say there's 50 US theaters. There's not. Okay, let's say there's 100 US theaters. There's probably 1,000, right? Or something like that. But let's just say 100, just keep the numbers around. Okay. Let's say they only really wanted 30 of the 100 theaters. Is it more expensive for them to close all the other theaters, or is it or is just let the ball hit the ground? Do you know what I mean? That's the question.
I heard some people talking about if there was a merger that, let's say they merge with AMC, just a hypothetical, that when the merger happened, AMC could go immediately close. Let's say AMC got all the Regal. As part of that merger, they could then close any theater they didn't want. I don't think it's really going to be that simple if that were the scenario, because you still have leases, right?
Yeah, the challenge is, what exactly are those theaters? If they're actually physical building structures, then the right person to sell it to is the REIT holder for AMC, which is, I can't remember the ticker, but they actually own Topgolf. That's why I'm only 30% joking. You know what I mean? But or not own Topgolf, but they also rent to Topgolf.
Right.
Yeah. So, but if it's a bunch of operating leases, that's a totally different animal. That, because then basically you'd have to live out the remainder of the lease, and then good luck, landlord, have a nice day, so to speak.
But it's not as simple, or is it? Like, if there was a merger where, let's say Cinemark got control of all of the Regals, they can't just like say, all right, well, we own this now, and starting tomorrow, 50% of these are closing because we don't want them. We just want the good ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sparky's got a good point here. He's like, let the ball hit the ground. And I'm like, I agree with Sparky. I'm not sure why I mean, I would say 70 from this little basic baby press release, I say the ball hits the ground too. Like 75%. If I had to give odds, I don't know why I feel the need to give them, but I'd be 75% the ball hits the ground, 25% it doesn't, and somehow magically something happens here, only because the private equity guys want out so badly they're willing to give financing for it. That would be the only thing, and somehow that financing actually helps AMC in some way, or helps. That would be the only reason the ball does not hit the ground, in my opinion.
I agree with free advice. I mean, I don't know how this thing's going to turn out, but if Regal was just a close, it's going to only benefit AMC and Cinemark, because, you know, all of a sudden now 1/3 of the theaters out there in the United States are gone. The Cinemark's already talking in their investor call. I don't know if you heard it, May, but they were already talking about capacity constraints as things get bigger. So it would almost, I think, benefit AMC more than Cinemark. As the box office grows into 2026, Cinemark they're going to be selling out and they're going to be constrained. AMC still has more screens they'd like to get people into. So I don't know.
Free advice is right as far as that goes. Like, it would, if the ball hits the ground, it is actually beneficial, because the thing that we haven't yet seen, I mean, there's a lot of theaters, number one. Okay. There's a lot of theaters to close down. And you do have a lot of really cool releases coming out. So, yes, is the answer to, I don't know if I got the question right.
Yeah, I don't have a strong position. You know, like I know people are already taking sides. Oh, I definitely want this merger to happen, or I definitely don't. I can't even judge because I don't know what's the deal. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I mean,
what's in it for us?
Like, in case it's confusing, this call is more about, oh, how interesting is this?
Yeah, we're not advocating any position.
Yeah, there's no advocating.
There's nothing literally to analyze a position. We're just spitballing here.
I mean, it's a little bit like watching a car accident, right? Like, we're like, oh wow, look how fast the car is moving. That sort of
thing. May, look away, look away. Sparky, cover your eyes, Sparky. It's not going to be pretty.
It's wrong for the investors of AMC or Cinemark, for that matter, to ignore that this press release came out, because clearly there are some ways this could be done that would absolutely piss off everybody. You know what I mean? But I can't see AA doing it in a way that would be, you know, it's like you know how it's like watching a roulette wheel. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know why I feel the need to give analogies, but the ball's just spinning right now. We don't know where it's going to land. There's a handful of places where we might be okay, but mostly, you know, I don't know. Like, that's what that stage is. Until more is announced, we won't know. There is the possibility that there are many possibilities for what could be done, but I definitely think that this is a buyer's market, and the sellers are definitely, you know, this release, if there's any ambiguity, this release demonstrates the sellers are highly motivated. You know.
I want to get to a couple questions that our friend Bullish Mike had asked me since he couldn't join in tonight. And I think we kind of already covered this one, May. And then I'm going to get your guys' questions in the audience as well. So get those ready. Don't drop them just yet, because I'm not looking at the screen. Mike said, is it 90% likely to be an IPO? He says merger talks are pie in the sky. 90% merger. I think he's just asking what is more likely. I think what I heard you say earlier, May, is you said what? They would try and get the merger talks out of the way before the IPO?
Well, here's the thing. If they IPO today, it would just be literally asking every single question that they don't know the answer to. So that's part of the reason so my suspicion is the bankers think that if they can go ahead and sniff around AMC and Cinemark and see if literally anything could be done, that the IPO price would come in better for the debt holders. That's what this release screams at to me.
Okay.
Because they're actually that desperate. They're worried that if the IPO comes out, this is going to be the worst deal ever. Like,
yeah, I saw people saying that on Twitter, like this is going to IPO and it's going to immediately tank.
Yeah.
I mean, that's possible, right?
Yeah.
But we can't even speculate on that till we get a look at the financials ourselves.
You're looking for some hook there's some hook, some additional news that might make it, that might sell the IPO a little better, that sort of thing.
His second question to finish up Mike's questions is, how would a merger look considering both AMC and Cinemark are cash strapped and leveraged? I think we touched on that already.
Yeah.
As well earlier.
That's what makes it so exciting, right? Because they would have to come up with the financing. And so the most likely person to give them the financing, in my opinion, Sparky may have insight into this as well, or differently. I'm cool with either. I'm cool to be wrong in this. The most likely way that they would get their financing is through the guys who are trying to shove the deals over to them.
Yeah. All right. May, do you have any other kind of like wrap up thoughts, or Sparky? And because I want to start putting this out now that I have a time to look at the comments and see what questions you guys have since you're here. And thank you everybody for being here, and thank you for being interested. I mean, it's going to be, wow, another fascinating topic for us to talk about for the next year, May.
This thing is like AMC for content creators is the gift. I really love like following AMC because it is actually one of the more complicated business situations that I've looked at. And maybe other people disagree, but all of the weird financing they did over the years. And then really they're in execution phase right now. So I'm like, wow, they came up with something random that we could actually do something with. That's pretty amazing. Now, Etan, that is just flat out mean. In what way, if you could actually clarify why you feel that we're misleading people? I don't think we've done anything but provide real information here. So you kind of sound like you have issues or something. I don't know why you would come on.
Ethan's one of the Popcorn Project nut jobs, May, who thinks that AMC had no bankruptcy risk. Anyone who's telling you AMC had no bankruptcy risk, I'm going to tell you guys, before listening to these goofballs, just go look at the annual negative free cash flow, negative 800 million, negative 400 million, negative 600 million. It's going to be this year. There's definitely was and continues to be bankruptcy risk for AMC.
Ethan, go get some help mentally. I don't know what's driven you to say mean things online.
These guys don't look at the financials, man. When they do look at them, they don't understand them. It's unfortunate, but I would just block him from your channel. It's not worth engaging with. They're not interested in honest financial conversation. All right, moving on. What other questions you guys got?
Yeah, there were some good ones. Free Advice has actually made some really good comments, so I don't want to ignore some of the things.
Yeah, let's bring up some people that have real questions here.
Wait, I can't scroll down. Can you look down? I feel like he had one, like a couple down, an interesting statement.
Press release. He said the press release tells you that Regal is in serious trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
They're going to go broke before they IPO this junk. AMC, of course, needs to survive, and we will see another cash raise. I'm predicting another cash raise in 2025 as well for AMC. I have been very upfront about that. They're not done raising cash based on the cash burn. We'll know more about that when we get the Q4 numbers on Tuesday, but I'm more worried about Q1. I mean, we're lining up for a 1.6 billion box office in Q1. That's, in my book, probably another $200 million cash burn for AMC. So all that money they just raised in December, that's going out the window. That's why they did the December cash raise, in fact, because of Q1. Free advice. This guy seems like he's got the play pretty well figured out. Yes, they do have bankruptcy risk right now.
Yeah, all of these things are true. Are the bond prices showing any concerns over the court case? I think the bonds are fine right now. I have to take another look, but they are fine. Hold on, let me just block Eaton. He clearly has issues. Give me a second.
He says, Tony, we'll find out who your handler was. Ethan, on every video and on my Twitter, I say very plainly, no one has ever paid me, not promised me anything, not paid me anything. You guys are Looney Tunes, and I feel sorry for you. But yes, block him because we don't need to see that bullshit. All right, Hawkeye, he says, I'm still expecting another dilution from AMC with expected Q4 Q1 cash bleed. Absolutely. I am too. All right. I know the bulls don't want to hear that, but that's what the financials tell me. Free advice says March is a disaster. Yeah, we've only got one real good movie in March, unfortunately. So we're gonna limp through. Mickey 17, and even that, I mean, the numbers are not that big. $40 million opening weekend, maybe 25. I don't know. The best thing you guys can do is go watch the movie. That's all I'm going to say. AMC Kitty Cowboy, what's up? He says, what are you expecting for these next earnings call? I went over my expectations for Q4 earnings on January 2nd. So go find that video. You'll have my expectations, and then we'll see how close I came on Tuesday. Sparky, free advice says Tony gets this right. He's giving you all great advice. Thank you. Sparky says bonds, I doubt, care about the court case. Yeah, I don't want to. I made a video about the court case. I don't want to derail this merger conversation talking about that, please. But if you want to know about the court case, then go watch my video and leave me a comment there.
Minecraft. So some people are really looking forward to Minecraft. Look, I mean, I think that because there's just so much stuff going on with oh my gosh, my restream is going a little nuts. Sorry about that. I think that because there's just so much stuff going on right now. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. There's just so much stuff going on in the macroeconomics of things. I mean, people in general are really freaked out, having nothing to do, like even before we start talking about going to the theater, the consumer, even though the consumer looks really strong, like this is separate from AMC. The problem is the consumer is freaked out right now. So that is unfortunate because even though January typically isn't the biggest month, February isn't the biggest month. The real question that I have that I'm like praying it works out is like, can we calm down all of the weirdness in the macroeconomics by summer? You know, the spring being weak, it's not the first time it's happened. It kind of sucks that it happens. But if the summer ends up being this like period of extreme fear for the consumer such that they're afraid to even go to the movies, that is not ideal. I don't know if that's come up at all.
Anytime that comes up, May, we fall back as a community on previous data that shows during recessions, people go to the movies. So we have at least one data point that says that from, I don't remember how many decades ago, the last recession, but whether or not that holds up in another economic, I mean, there's no guarantee that holds up, but that's the standard answer. So that's all I'm going to say.
I know. I will say this, and there's one other thing. So number one, I know that a lot of folks think that, but it's a really weird, like this whole macroeconomics right now with what's going on. And I don't care about the politics. What I care about is how jobs are going and how people feel mentally as far as that goes to it, so into the summer. And so there's something a little bit like, there's something a little bit different about this particular macroeconomics versus like a housing recession or something like that. Okay. So we won't know until we know. That's the first thing. I would say this though. doing a deal, Cinemark, like let's say it actually, goes in a way that we wouldn't have expected. Like somehow there's a financing thing that helps out AMC or Cinemark for that matter, and you end up with essentially a duopoly, right? What have you? And you've got one guy that's got a lot of properties and the other one that doesn't. That's going to have to play out. But there is a thought process that of like, what does Livewire look like versus AMC look like? To own the venue.
Yeah, tell us about the Livewire thing. You mentioned something to me about that, and I didn't really understand it. So can you?
Yeah, I mean, with Livewire became a monopoly, owning both the ticketing and the venue. Well, they rent the venues, so they actually, I think, like even in 2018 when he was trying to roll up everything and then sell off assets, because that was the 2018 plan, was that he would just buy up all his competitors, get rid of all the ones that were no good, let the leases die out, and then unfortunately that had him crazy levered into interest rates increasing, and then COVID, etc. So it didn't work out. That is what it is. But the game plan that he was following is kind of what Livewire did by taking out all their competitors, and and then they've done a lot of really special things to raise ticket prices on the different artists. Obviously the artists are pissed because they're basically a monopoly, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I remember reading something about that a year plus ago.
So I mean, like the issue is that the artists, the musical artists, are a very different animal than movies. But if you could get a monopoly in movies, you might finally be able to rationalize this business. That said, Regal, if I had to choose between becoming the monopoly and just getting rid of the Regal theaters altogether, I'd probably still, especially for, the near term, get rid of the Regal theaters, right? Like that would be the better move.
Yep. I agree for now. Like we have no idea what's going to happen. I'd prefer, take a third of the theaters out. Everybody that's left standing does better.
Yeah. And then, Cinemark and AMC can fight it out the old fashioned way.
But who knows between AMC and Cinemark, if they get offered a deal that is too hard to say no to, maybe it falls in somebody's lap. I don't know.
Yeah. And free advice. I totally agree with what you're saying here. Like I'm on the same page with how you're thinking about it. But we got to actually talk about all possible scenarios in this, so that we acknowledge other people.
Yeah, well, that might be a dream scenario for everybody in the industry, that Regal would go away. We don't know what the outcome of this press release is going to be. So
yeah,
we're just kind of
thrilled.
we're throwing stuff up in the air and kind of trying to think about what are all of the possibilities. I like to do risk management buckets. Like this could happen, that could happen, that could happen. Let's try and start trying to understand all of them.
Yeah, full acknowledgement to what you're saying, though, free advice, in case you think we're trying to suggest otherwise. Yeah. Wait, was AMC, if Doge you know what, AMC Hawkeye, a stimulus check definitely helps the consumer. We don't know what will happen. I mean, look, there's a lot of things that are being said. We don't know till we know. It's been a really crazy first 100 days, though. And that is one thing that I definitely talked about last year, is like, I'm a little scared about the first 100 days. I don't think you can really do much in understanding macroeconomics until you see all the way through the first 100 days. So, but it's not a like full acknowledgement. That's a real thing too. I mean, people definitely, if you give consumers, broadly speaking, across the board, especially the lowest income folks, a check, they tend to spend it on things including theater attendance,
and maybe games, and maybe consoles. Who knows? It'll help. It would help a lot.
It like we've already seen that it directly creates a stimulus to consumer discretionary. That's true.
Anya says, just noticed your hat. Hardcore carnivore. Yes, I'm still doing well on that, Anya. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah, I'm headed to Southeast Asia. Hey, that's how I do my diet.
Hey, you want to hear a quick, funny sideline story? I wore this. I went to the grocery store with my wife. She was so thrilled because I normally make her go by herself. Not because I don't want to spend time with her. That was the sole reason why I went today. to spend time with her because I had to work here, getting an IMAX video out and then doing this live stream. And I wanted to spend time with her. I don't go with her because she'll spend an hour and a half shopping for a package of lettuce and half a dozen yogurt. And I got more things to do with my time. But I wore this hat. Here's the story. I wore this hat and I said, I wonder if anyone at the grocery store will comment on the hat. One person did. It was the butcher behind the fresh meat counter. We got in a whole conversation about steaks and Wagyu beef and a bunch of other stuff. It was funny. Of all the people to say something, the butcher, he was on it. That guy, he knows his meat, I guess.
Your wife might have paid him just to be like, hey, can you keep my husband keep him entertained? I'm gonna go look at some lettuce. I'm gonna done it. It's a smart lady.
All right. Do y'all have any other questions for May? I'm not the expert on mergers. While she's here, while we have her, and again, thank you, May, for.
This is a very much so like who knows kind of scenario. Though.
Yeah,
so literally, yeah.
This is all theoretical. We don't know anything more than you guys know, but May knows a lot more about, and she remembers more in the finance world about previous mergers and stuff than I ever, could hope to learn. So. She's probably forgotten more than I could ever hope to learn.
I don't think that's true, but I appreciate the compliment.
I'm going to give you guys 1 or 2 more minutes to throw any questions out. And May, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I mean, it's just so intriguing. It really is. This is like, this definitely what's next for SoFi. I don't think I'm supposed to do SoFi.
May we need to do a SoFi video. Let's agree to schedule that in the next week or so when you have time.
Yeah, that's great.
When are you going to Vietnam?
I'm going to be headed to Vietnam on March the 18th because I made commitments to some very dear friends. Otherwise,
and when is SoFi's next earnings?
It won't be till April. So I will say this just as a preview, like it should be pretty volatile in general for all financials, of which SoFi is obviously going to be a financial, but it's going to be volatile until JP Morgan comes out again. It's always the first to report. And that volatility, we can talk about that.
All right. I want to talk with you before you go to Vietnam about SoFi.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. So we'll do it next week.
And we'll do it. We'll do it with the folks here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Tech We Love says, May, what is the likeliest scenario that would hurt AMC or Cinemark if something happened? What are you, something happened like what? In the economy?
Oh man. Yeah.
In the world, like the China cough.
I mean, okay, so let's start with the obvious, which you probably don't mean. The worst thing could happen is that this weird disease situation that we're getting reports on closes down everything. But we know that that's probably not the way that it will be handled if we had another COVID-like situation. Given
we try not to say that word, May, the
C word. Okay,
yeah,
so
because of our people monitoring,
Sorry. Okay, so that the worst thing would be if something disallowed public groupings to happen again. However, that is, given how things have played out, I believe that's very low scenario because of the passionate feelings that certain people that would have control over that now have, and also other things. Let's not go there. Let's not trigger people for no reason. So that would be the worst case scenario, which is extremely low probability. If we're talking specifically about this deal scenario, there's any number of things that could be really bad. The good things would be if they just let the ball drop to the ground. I agree with free advice on what he's saying. The second scenario that I would be open-minded to is if somehow the private equity folks suggested that they would refinance the 12% debt at a lower rate, then I would be open-minded to hearing what they have to say. Because remember, it's that 12%. It's that 12% stuff, that 12% debt plus all the covenants on it that makes like a lot of different corporate actions not a possible thing that you can do. Right. So that I would actually be open-minded to. Another scenario that I'd be open-minded to is if there was a joint spin of just the European business, because you know how much I hate that European business. both of those two actions are fair of the okay. So the joint spin of anything Europe, that's a low as heck probability. I mean, I might as well go ahead and go to the casino with my money at that point. Okay, like the weird financing arrangement to try to help AMC be able to pay for this, to eat it. I would give it solid 35% odds, but Sparky may totally disagree with me on that. He might be like, May, in your dreams that would happen. No one does that. So, but I give it like 25 to 35%. I think most likely the ball drops to the ground, but because I'm giving the other 25 to 35%, that's not a zero. Okay. So there's that. That's a really long answer to your very short question. Sorry.
Hopefully he got something out of that. Yeah. When is the next Roaring Kitty tweet? Oh man, I'm sure we are all waiting. I do own some GameStop, so just like you guys, I'd like to have another Roaring Kitty tweet. But every time he tweets it's less and less impact.
It would actually be hysterical. I mean, we were only, again, half joking when I was like, that thing's going to turn into a private equity firm. But if it actually does exactly that, you guys got to give me some love, okay, at that point.
May, do you have any questions on Tech We Love's other question here?
As Europe movie adverse, are European movie theaters adverse, or are their economies worse than USA for example? There were. I mean, Europe's such a hot mess. It's such a hot mess. There are some people that disagree with me, but especially given the strategy that the US is taking, in my opinion, that's a much longer discussion, but given the US's strategy, I prefer my money to be, and I could end up being very wrong, I prefer my money to be in the US versus Europe for the consumer part of things. Now, if all of this stuff calms down in Europe and you start having massive rebuild in UK, then on the business side of things, very different animal. But on the consumer side of things, I think you go through a little bit of an ugly period short term in Europe. I think it's unclear what happens in the US on the consumer side of the world.
Even GameStop seems to agree with you, May. Closed down Italy, closing down Germany, now closing down France, completely out of Europe.
Because your issue with consumer isn't just that the consumer is in a bad spot. It's that like those countries need to raise capital, tax money, right? They're also, our deficit is bad. Their deficit is bad. America has been very clear. It's not going to pay for some things. We don't care if it's right or wrong. We just have to play the ball where it's dropped, right? So like America's been very, but America has said it will not pay for stuff. That means that Europe's going to have to figure it out. That is why, that usually, I don't know, other people have strong opinions. That usually means they raise taxes. Okay. So that makes it very uncomfortable to be in a consumer-based business in Europe.
Stockland Trade says, is Cineworld an OTC stock? I don't even know that they're tradable at all since they went bankrupt and are owned by lenders now. It's a private company.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes some residual nasty stub of a company like trades on, but that's not my world. I like stuff that's nice and listed.
All right, May, thank you for your time tonight, guys. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you're watching it on replay and you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments on May's channel or mine, and we'll do our best to come up with an answer for you. If we know the answer, if I don't know the answer, I'll hit up May or Sparky and people much smarter than me and see what their thoughts on it. Remember, tonight was just a theoretical discussion on a very nebulous press release, and we're just going to all have to wait together and see, what's the next shoe that drops on this saga.
All right. Bye, guys. Happy week.
Let me, before you say goodbye, go ahead and wave your goodbyes. I'm pulling up the outro video.
Okay.
May, tell them how to find you on Twitter.
Oh, I'm at Markets with May on Twitter or on YouTube.
Markets with May on Twitter and YouTube. All right. Go give her a sub, guys. Good info from somebody with a lot more experience in the markets than me, and a good resource to have on our team. May, thank you for your time.
Absolutely. And we'll be back soon on SoFi.
Have a good night, guys. Watch my Cinemark video that dropped yesterday. 5-minute, 10-minute recap.
Oh, cool,
IMAX video dropped today, and we will see you on Tuesday after the market closes. I'll be hanging out with you guys, and we'll see what AMC has to say. Cool. Have a good night. Enjoy your Sunday.
Let's go. Yo, I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it, fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. I send the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today.